So you got the
Yeah.
scholarship, and then what did you choose to study and why did you choose it?
In American university, you have to do general. So I was taking a whole bunch of random classes, especially my first year, just to kind of get a feel, because I didn't go in there knowing what I wanted to do academically. I knew I wanted to play basketball, but at school-wise, it was just like something I felt like I just had to do. Even though I did enjoy a lot of the classes I was taking, and that's something I really enjoyed about American universities, the general studies, because I felt like I came out with a lot more knowledge than I would have if I just straight specialized in something. So yeah, taking general studies, I took psychology, and I realized how I was already really interested in the way people's minds were working.
Science. Technology. Medicine. Health. These four things make the world go round. Without them, we couldn't exist. This is the Monday Science Podcast, a weekly show bringing you the latest research and news in science, technology, medicine, and health, answering your questions or finding experts in the field to answer them. Your host is a pharmacist, an award-winning scientist. She leads her own research group and is the founder of King's College London Fight the Fakes. A tad bit on the qualified side. Welcome to Monday Science. Here's your host, Dr. Bahijja Raimi Abraham.
On today's episode, we have a very special guest, a very interesting guest. We've got Jesse Chuku in the building. Hello, Jesse. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Welcome to Monday. For those who don't know you, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I am first and foremost raised an athlete. I've played basketball most of my life, played for Great Britain, played professionally, played Division I college in America, and always been a creative person on the side, but it's always been kind of the side that I don't show as much because of my identity kind of as a basketball player. Since the pandemic hit, I've gained a lot of popularity with my videos online.
Amazing. I actually watched a lot of your videos, very well entertained. You gave such relief and chuckles throughout the pandemic for me, and I'm sure a lot of people. And how this all happened is that I happened to be speaking with one of the members of our team, Paula, and I was lamenting as to how I'd always wanted to be an actress when I was younger. And I did a little bit of acting, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to attempt to start using TikTok. And then Paula said, oh, well, you should actually consider using TikTok to act and show your acting skills like somebody I know. And then she said, oh, he used to be an actor. Is that Jesse Chuku? She said, yes. So here we are. I was like, oh my gosh, very small world and everything. So there's lots to unpack in your history, because I think for some people, they may know you more. I mean, now currently, they may know you more with your content and yes, the basketball, but maybe not so much your journey. And that's what I hope we can unpack today over the next however long we have you. I'm going to trap you here. So firstly, well, obviously from your accent, you sound as if you grew up in the UK, but we know that you have studied in America. So why did you choose to go to University of America? What was that all about?
Well, as soon as I started playing basketball, which was when I was about like 8 years old or something like that, it became my dream to go to America, because I just felt like that's where basketball is. That's where the NBA is. Michael Jordan, all the great players, that's where they go. And from that point, I just became so focused on getting there anyhow. And it did seem nearly impossible at the beginning, but I believe, and I remember anything that was American. I used to watch like the movies and stuff on Disney Channel, whatever. And it was just a dream. And I just kept that goal in mind and kept progressing towards it. So I would work really hard in basketball. And eventually, when it came to the time where I was kind of old enough to take more action about it, I sent out my game to a bunch of high school coaches out there, sent a bunch of emails with a message. Oh, look, I'm Jesse. I'm interested in coming to your school. You know, if any way we can make this happen, kind of looking to get an opportunity. And eventually one of the coaches came over, watched me play, and I was able to to get a scholarship to go to.
That is amazing. I was not expecting to hear all of that. I actually thought you would say, oh, there was a scholarship opportunity and you just went like, something that was brought to you. To hear that you sought out the opportunity, and you said so you had somebody film you to show your skills. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I had one of the parents of one of my friends on the team record the games, and because they had an American background, they was able to kind of guide me like what schools I could send the emails to and stuff like that. And yeah, I think taking initiative has been a theme in my life. Kind of, I always have that option whether I could wait for opportunity to come around and just keep hoping, or kind of just take action and be bold in trying to make something happen for myself.
Do you feel that the pandemic has probably even helped to exacerbate that as well, like give you more opportunities to create your own platform?
Yeah, I think so. I think in hindsight, it's so clear. It's so clear to see. But when the pandemic hit, it didn't feel as certain as it is maybe now. When it hit, basketball, there was no going, and I didn't know what was going to happen next, whether I was going to re-sign with the team I was with, Leicester Riders, or not. So, but then I started making videos, and I felt, I was making videos before this, and just here and there, not sharing so much of it, but I did some here and there that it was already something that was kind of fun. But with how instantly I saw some reaction, like my first video, I think it had like 1,000 views. I was like, what? No way, I've never had 1,000 views before, that I was like, it just encouraged me that something right was happening. And eventually I kind of saw the vision that I really believed that I could keep going with this and keep improving. And that's just kind of how.
So you got the scholarship, and then what did you choose to study, and why did you choose?
I think, well, in American university, you have to do general. So I was taking a whole bunch of random classes, especially my first year, just to kind of get a feel, because I didn't go in there knowing what I wanted to do academically. I knew I wanted to play basketball, but at school-wise, it was just like something I felt like I just had to do. Even though I did enjoy a lot of the classes I was taking, and that's something I really enjoyed about American universities, the general studies, because I felt like I came out with a lot more knowledge than I would have if I just straight specialized in something. So yeah, taking general studies, I took psychology, and I realized how already I was really interested in the way people's minds were working. And I was so interested in the classes that it just felt let me continue along this path. And then I was also taking a lot of graphic design classes, and that kind of fulfilled my creative side also. And now it's kind of making sense, because I feel like I'm putting those things together, with the way I'm coming up with ideas and the design element, because I'm kind of creating a whole picture, because it's green screen stuff that I'm doing. So I have to kind of visualize the whole backdrop and how it's going to look like in my head before I put it out. So it feels like it's coming to.
We had another speaker, Theodora Stewart. She's from America. I'm trying to get my head around the American system and talk about how it's quite general, and then you specialize, whereas here you start off, this is what you're going to do. So I think it's very interesting, because it probably allows you to even be creative in a specific topic as well, like creative in your knowledge gathering to some extent.
Yeah. But definitely with how you're choosing your classes to get your credits, you could definitely go more with like kind of how you're interested in. You have a bit more control, I believe. But I haven't been to uni in the UK. I just take it from what people have told me their experience has been like here.
Key things that I wanted to get out from, many things I wanted to get out of this interview, but specifically like your journey as an athlete, your journey as a student studying, how you bring that into your content. Because I would say, and I'm not trying to inflate your ego, because I'm sure you hear it all the time, but I would actually say one of the things that drew me particularly to your content was how fresh it was and how different. I personally haven't come across somebody that connects. Like there's the one you did about the fish, where the fish, I mean, I've watched that over again because it's just so fresh, and even it was just really good. So I can see the uniqueness in your content. Knowing your story so far, we're just scratching the surface of the interview. I can also see how that comes together. Can we talk about the fish one actually? How did you get the idea for the fish? And maybe to just describe the fish video to our listeners, and then tell us how you came up with that idea.
The video is like a stitch of another video. So the original video was these kids messing around, and they throw a massive rock off the bridge, and you watch it go all the way down, and in the original video is a big splash after maybe like 3-4 seconds of it dropping. And when I watched that video originally, I had the feeling like, wow, I just watched a video of these kids throw a rock off the bridge, but I was so like, I didn't swipe away. I knew what was going to happen, but I wanted to stay for the end. And I just felt like, oh, that's it. Like what happened? Like, you know, there should be some type of like, consequence or something. I just had a feeling inside me that, oh no, like something has to happen from this. And the idea came of the fish, like what would the fish think about these silly guys like a rock off the bridge? And that moment instantly, I knew I had to make a video. And it was one of the quickest videos. You know, I think I made it in like maybe like 30 minutes, an hour or something like that. And it's like one of my most popular videos.
I've had to put myself on mute because I was just laughing because I was remembering it. Please continue.
Yeah. I had the idea that the fish, like, you know, what would the fish think? And I remember just calling my friend Charlie and just telling him this idea, like, oh, like, what if there was a fish there and he had a whole life ahead of him and really looking forward for his future. And all of a sudden, because of these kids, like, he gets hit by a rock and that's it for him. I came up with a storyline that simply, and I stitched the videos together. The rock came down and it cuts away to the storyline of the fish. And midway conversation when he's talking about, you know, he's about to get married and he's so excited for his future, you kind of forget about the rock, you know, as the viewer. And then all of a sudden, boom, the rock hits him and his other friend that's also a fish is in shock that how did this happen? Where did this come from? And then it ends with showing the guys just laughing on the bridge. They're unaware of that. They just ended the fishes.
So that was actually the shortest one for you to make. But do you think you said it's one of your most popular videos?
It's one of my most popular videos where it's like the easier some things are, the more the greater the response sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes it is really like that. The more effortless and easy some things are, it just naturally flows sometimes, you know?
I feel will resonate with a lot of people because as I explained at the start, my sort of how this has all happened was me saying how I'm so apprehensive about making content. And even though I do things, an academic, so I lecture, right? So I shouldn't be so shy about making content. But I feel that a lot of people, that's a limiting step. They think about the workload that's required to create the videos, the script. What if it's not well received? What if they look stupid or silly or things like that? How do you overcome that? And how have you overcome that in your journey so far?
I think I could use myself as an example because I know how that feels like. And I think that I could speak about this still so easily because it wasn't that long ago that I was also in a situation where I had to decide whether I'm even going to talk on the camera because my first 2 or 3 videos, I didn't say anything. I used someone else's audio. And even that step of overcoming that, let me just use my voice, yeah, it feels weird or whatnot, but let me overcome that. It's been a journey in that. And I feel that on the other side of that kind of fear or discomfort is where you could grow and actually achieve the things that maybe you have the ideas or the goals that you have about. But definitely, if I was to have stayed in my comfort zone, I wouldn't have been able to progress in any way because I didn't. Of course, I had dreams of having some big viral videos or being known for making this stuff, but if I wasn't able to overcome these thoughts or even think too far ahead where it's like, oh, it's going to be a lot of work or commitment or something, and just kind of do the things that I wanted to do but maybe was a bit afraid of, then I wouldn't be at the point that.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I feel like I'm not going to end the interview there, but I was like, I feel like, wow. No, I'm not ending it there. It's like that in itself is a line. I'm going to go back to your basketball journey. So I read an article that was from 2016 where you said basketball is like the best professor you can have. You learn a lot of life lessons in basketball. I learned to be persistent, cooperative, patient, and implemented these characteristics in every aspect of my life. When I'm prepared, I carry the same mindset as if I'm preparing for an important game. So you mentioned that you'd started playing basketball when you were younger. What was that first experience like? How did you get into basketball? And yeah, when did it all start for you?
Yeah, well, it started because in my primary school, I was one of the only kids that didn't make the football. My class was small enough where it's like, if you're not on the football team, there's only like 2 or 3 kids, you know? And yeah. So I kind of felt like, oh, everyone's playing football. I'm not on the team. I'm not in that crowd. What's my thing? You know, even though I loved football so much, but I was even tall at this point. So I just kind of felt, yeah, let me try this basketball thing that everyone's saying that, you know, that eventually I started to bring the basketball to school and just, you know, playing around with myself, like with the skills. And eventually a lot of the football kids started to come over to play with me. Wow. And I just, at this point, I was well practiced. I could do a lot of skills and stuff like that. And I wouldn't take it easy on them. And then I noticed at this point that, oh, do you know what? I feel like I'm kind of good at this. You know, I feel like this is my thing. And that just motivated me to keep going with it and find ways to keep playing, finding a club team and whatnot. So yeah, that's how it started. I forgot the second part of your question.
I just want to still focus on you found basketball, not that. Wow, you found basketball essentially.
I'll say that, or we kind of met halfway because I felt like it was calling me, but I also felt like I went to it because I remember even before that, like family members and stuff like that.
Because of the height. How tall?
You know,
how tall are you? Or how tall? Well, I guess you would have ranged from all the heights to whatever height you are now. So how tall are you now?
6'8".
6'8". Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you were probably quite tall from
even when I was in primary school. I remember being taller than some of my friends' parents.
Wow. Okay. So that's why everyone's like basketball. Okay. That's interesting. Well, I don't know. The second part of the question was when did it all start? But we've covered that because it started with not being able to play football. And then you've got your own thing. That's really powerful because I like to highlight to people and talk about that when you have failures aren't always a negative. You can grow from your failure. I really am a firm believer. It's about how you grow from your failure. It's not so much about the success. What happens? How do you pivot something going wrong for you and making it into a positive?
And everything could be it. You could win with that mind, whereas a win is a win, but also a failure could be seen as a win also if you view it in the right way, I believe.
I agree with basketball. That sounds like you were self-taught. Essentially, you sort of started off yourself, picking up the skills
at the beginning.
And then you had your training. So you played basketball in America, as we know, Greece, Spain, and also in the UK. And then last year, 2020, departed from Leicester Riders due to injury. So firstly, how is the injury and how was it for you stepping away from basketball?
Well, so I had a hip injury that I was kind of dealing with throughout my career, and it made me not be able to do the things I had in my mind, you know, and which could be frustrating. So when the pandemic hit and I was making a bit of content here and there, but still kind of in the Leicester situation, it felt like I could make a shift at that point. I didn't tell anyone at that point that I already had in my mind that, you know, I think I could do this, you know, because I didn't want to put too much pressure from the outside, but I did see it from even back then.
Wow. Do you think you'll return to football? Look at me now. Basketball. Do you think you return to basketball?
Yeah, I wouldn't completely shut that door, but it's definitely not. It's not my focus right now because I have a lot of momentum with the content creation, with this entertainment side that I feel that it would probably be taking some steps backwards maybe to return that. As I said, like I feel like I've learned a lot of what I needed to from basketball, and I've applied it to what I'm doing or into everything I'm doing. That I feel like it's been the teacher I've needed. But you know, sometimes you graduate from a class.
Very true. Very, very true. What has been like your support system during this time? Because obviously what I was actually about to say was obviously your identity has been basketball, but that's a bit of a sweeping statement because it's clear that you've been very aware of your identity throughout, which has been, yes, basketball, but also this creative side, this kind of intellectual side and bringing that all together. But it does seem as if basketball, the key, you know, as you said, like your main teacher for a while, and then now you've graduated from that into this new space, into this new, to still at some extent it's unknown because who knows where things are going to go for you. So how has that transition been for you, and in terms of like what has been your support system and support network?
Yeah, I'll definitely say close family and friends have been a big support for me because I think it's hard when you have to shift your identity. I think that's something that I think a lot of people when they might say they're reluctant to post videos and stuff like that online, that this sometimes is one of the key issues, is that your identity is at stake, or it might feel like, you post something and there's some resistance, or even there's no resistance, could feel like there's some resistance, people keeping quiet. Sometimes that's even worse.
I feel attacked. Why are you saying things so? I feel like you're saying everything that I've been panicking about. Please continue.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I think that it doesn't go away, because I feel like that sometimes. I know that, even that's why I wasn't showing this side as much when I was playing basketball, because I felt like you kind of have to be the tough basketball player, be serious. There's no way I could be in practice and stuff. Imagine if we lost like 3 games in a row, everyone's morale is down and stuff like that, and I'm going off to post videos, Fred the Fish and stuff. It's like it's tough to balance that. But I think having support that kind of just encourages you and could say just keep going and stuff like that, it's been a big help. But not as much as is had to come from within, to actually step up and take action.
I mean, as I said, that was very loud. I received it loud and clear. It's interesting because I don't know, I'm not sure if Paolo explained how Monday Science was started. So I'm a scientist, I'm a pharmacist, I work at King's College London. I don't always say where I work, but that's where I work. And I've been wanting to start a podcast for 2-3 years prior to 2020. And I've always done public engagement stuff, talking about science. And, I've just always done that, but I've always wanted to have my own podcast. And then the pandemic hit, and then I caught COVID in April. And it was over in the episode that's been released today is the first time I've actually fully explained why I started the podcast. But basically, I was ill with COVID in April, around the time where we didn't really know much about the disease or the infection. My symptoms were really affected, like my cognitive function. It was just horrible. And on my birthday, I was ill. And I remember I woke up and I just was so grateful to be alive. And then I vowed that I'm never going to sit within my comfort zone anymore, that I will live life. I said, well, the one thing that I've been holding myself back from is I've been silencing myself to some extent, because I knew I had the potential to create a podcast and create something, but out of fear and out of judgment and thinking, do scientists do that? Like, I struggle a lot being one of the few Black academics anyway in the UK, but more specifically scientists, female, all that. I struggle a lot. Do people look at me and think, scientist, is that what I meant to be portraying? What is that? But at that point, when you feel, your mortality is in question, I'm like, who cares what everybody thinks? I'm going to start this podcast. The first episode, I said it in the episode today, that the first episode was less than 5 minutes, because it was very hard for me to talk. So even just to do the introduction of the first episode took so much strength out of me, but it felt so good. The reason why it's called Monday Science, I like Mondays, but it forced me to do something every week that just constantly challenges me to be out of my comfort zone. And unfortunately, I don't know what tense to use, because I had long COVID. Sometimes, there'll be times where I'll try and record and I'll be really, really ill, but I'll power through. But there was one time where I couldn't, it was just too difficult. And so for me, Monday Science represent the first step in me pushing myself out of my comfort zone and just remembering, as you said, like life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. You constantly have to challenge yourself, especially in moments where life can be really weird, where you can feel that you're just coasting through, and then you're like, oh, am I really here? And then something happens that forces you to have to step up. That's actually how this all came about. So I totally get it, but it feels like I've now become comfortable with the podcast. So I'm back in the comfort zone. So the next phase is YouTube, and that I've been saying each time, oh, I'm going to do something, and I've been holding back. So I've set myself a target for next year to create some content, start being more active on YouTube and TikTok, which is very interesting that, as I said before, with my conversation with Paolo, it led to this moment. And because I feel like some of the things you're saying, I know all the listeners would be getting some information, but I know me personally, I'm like, right, okay, this is it. One has to push themselves at times. It's
really exciting listening to you say these things, because firstly, I could connect with what you're saying, because I feel like how you're speaking, I felt like I was at that stage quite recently. And I must say, you feel like a natural with what you're doing. So it's even nicer to hear it. I see it working out for you. It's really, and I think so. Yeah, definitely. It's just exciting to see where you go with that. But I definitely feel that, yeah, it's true. If you're able to keep continuing to push past the comfort, there's only good things that could come out.
Amazing. Thank you for that.
You've been listening to the Monday Science Podcast, a weekly show bringing you the latest research and news in science, technology, medicine, and health. We hope you've gotten some useful and thought-provoking info from the show, and we hope you had fun along the way. We know we did. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on our website at www.mondaysciencepodcast.com. Shoot us an email at info@mondaysciencepodcast.com. Find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Monday Science, and access episode summaries at mondayscience.medium.com. See you next week on the Monday Science Podcast.